So at the very beginning, we know that it is very important to adjust the motivation. And when we talk about adjusting the motivation, obviously we're talking about adjusting something within our mind, adjusting our mental attitude. So all the adjustments that we're talking about is something that is internal. And this actually explains the etymology of another term that we use for Buddhists. When we want to make a distinction between Buddhists and non-Buddhists, alternative terms that we use very commonly in Tibetan is the inner and the outer. So the inner refers to the Buddhist because whatever we do is a practice that addresses the mind, that is an inward practice, and everyone else is classified as an outer. Okay, so this you could say is like a rough distinction between Buddhists and non-Buddhists. If you want to see the distinctions and the difference in more detail, really you would have to look at their tenets, their positions. And that is something that we can do at a different class. It's the subject of another class, not this one. So we can stop in that general presentation here, but to adjust our motivation, we will recite Refuge, Bodhicitta, and the 100 deities, Ganteng Lagema. All right, so last week we started with the new subject, new chapter, you would say, which is established bases. And Geshe has given equivalents for established bases and also their definitions. Hopefully you took some interest in that. We will not repeat that. Today we will go into new material, which is actually looking at the classification of established bases. So when we talk about classifications, obviously we're going to expand. It's almost like a menu that you expand, and we want to look at those categories, subcategories there. Now, we will see that when we give the classification, basically we end up with two sides. On one side, we will have permanent entities, and on the other side, we will have functioning entities. So everything we need to discuss really falls in these two categories, the permanent and the functioning entities. So it is important to introduce those and go into all their subcategories and really analyze them. In general, there are less things that are in the category of permanent. So the way that this is expressed is like there is less to talk about permanent. Why? Because there are less things that belong in this category. And when we talk about functioning things, the majority of things, so we have many more bases, many more examples, many more things that belong into the second category, the functioning entities. And therefore, sometimes this is expressed by saying there are many more things to discuss about when it comes to impermanent, functioning things. Okay, so we will look at these two categories today. So last week we gave the equivalents. We gave 6 equivalents for established bases. As we say, this is one presentation. We went through that last week. We will not repeat this. Today, let's start with a new presentation. So imagine that at the top of your page, you write selflessness, okay? And then you divide this into 2 branches. One branch is existent, and we know existent is equivalent with established bases. So that's one branch. And the other branch is non-existent. So for the existent, the established basis is something that we introduced and we talked about last week. For the non-existent, in a sense, there's no much point dedicating too much time on this. What are we going to say? It does not exist. We have already given an example of the horns of the rabbit, isn't it? So that is sufficient. Now, we say that at the top, we have selflessness. Now, selflessness is a very important concept. And for example, we talk about selflessness of the person, selflessness of phenomena. And we have the presentations, the tenets of different schools that present it in this way and the other way. But what is important to see is that whether something exists or whether something does not exist, they all come under selflessness, right? There is no self anywhere. But whether something exists or does not exist, it comes to selflessness. Okay, so we already know how to use it is pervasive, it is necessarily the case, or it is not pervasive. It's not necessarily so. Because we put selflessness at the top, and then we say we have two branches, existent and non-existent, what we're going to say now is that if it is existent, it is necessary, it is pervasive, that is selflessness. And if it is non-existent, it is necessary, it is pervasive, that is selflessness. Okay, so we have seen how we have the use here of pervasion because we have two branches coming out of selfless or selflessness. As we say, from the two branches, one is non-existent. So there's not much to say about non-existent. But if we look at the existent, there's quite a lot to talk about. So now we take existent and we divide it into two branches as well. One branch of the existent is going to be functioning entities. The other branch is going to be permanent entities. So basically we take the existent, we say if something is existent, it will either be functioning, meaning impermanent, or it will be permanent. The definition of functioning is that which is suitable to perform a function. So the opposite of that, which is the permanent, has a definition that is that which is not suitable to perform any function. Okay, so again, we have said that from these two branches, one is far more useful. We have to talk much more about impermanent functioning things. For the permanent, we don't have much to say, okay? However, because these two are branches of existent, if it is functioning, it is pervasive that it is existent. If it is permanent, again, it is pervasive that it is existent. So as you can see, we have existent and we have two branches, the functioning and the permanent. So basically we have two categories, the functioning, or you could say the impermanent, and the permanent. And we have seen how there is pervasion. So it's quite important to actually recognize, to understand these two categories, the impermanent and the permanent. So Geshe was saying, I think the best way of presenting them is side by side, because they are direct opposites in a sense, isn't it? They are pair, impermanent, permanent. So if we present them together, that will be very useful. Okay, so let's start with the first category, which is functioning things, functioning entities. So we are going to, expand this, analyze this. But the first thing that we want to say is, what is a functioning entity? Functioning entity is something that has a function. To have a function, it means to be able to perform a function. Okay, and then we say the opposite of functioning thing is the permanent. So what is the permanent? The permanent is that which is not able to perform a function. Okay, so you see what is the use of presenting them side by side. Functioning and permanent are opposite things. So if you can understand one, you can almost reverse that understanding and you say, oh, the opposite belongs to the other category. So capable to perform a function, not capable to perform a function. Okay, Let's look at a second name that we can use. Here are their name equivalents, right? So we have given functioning thing as number one. Let's look at the second. The name equivalents, we're just looking at them from the point of view of different functions, okay, or different activities. Okay, so just from a different angle. The second thing we want to look at is impermanent. So when something is impermanent, we say it is momentary. And momentary here means it changes momentarily. It disintegrates momentarily. Okay, let's look at the opposite of impermanent is permanent. So the permanent is something that is not momentary, meaning it is not disintegrating momentarily. So you can see there are just almost like the pairs, the impermanent, the permanent. Let's look at the next name in our list, and that is produced or product. And how do we understand that which is produced? Is that which is generated by causes and conditions. So actually generated by causes and conditions is the definition of the product or the produced. Okay, we want to see at its opposite. The opposite is not generated. Okay, so you can see if we move like this, we always have two branches and we have two pairs of things that are the opposite of each other. We come to the next name or the next term here, which is compound. Compound is that which is suitable for three things, suitable to do three things, suitable for generation, abidance, and disintegration or ceasing, all right? So for example, if we look at ourselves, we go through those phases. We are born, then we abide for a while, and then after that we cease, we stop, we die, isn't it? So this describes the compound. And then if we want to see the opposite is uncompounded. So uncompounded is that which is not suitable to, not suitable for generation, abidance, or cessation. So again, we have division into two branches. Okay. Another word that we want to look at is the cause. Cause, right? So what is a cause? Cause is that which has a result. So for example, a vase has a result, a pillar has a result, the red, the blue, the yellow, they have results. So they are causes. If you find something that does not have a result, it means you have to classify it in the other category, the category of impermanent phenomena. If it has a result, it is a cause. So it is impermanent. If it doesn't have a result, it has to be permanent. Another term that we can use is result. So we talked about the cause before. Now let's talk about the result. Result is that which is generated and it has a generating cause. The generating cause comes before, comes earlier, and generates the result, isn't it? So most of the things that are around us that we hold with our hands, that we see, and so forth, are results. They have been produced, they have been generated by a generating cause. Now, there are certain things that are not generated. They do not have a generating cause. And these things are called not results. And so we understand that they have to go into the other category of permanent phenomena. So it's like this, through going through the different terms and understanding them, you can see the two main categories, the functioning and the permanent. Okay, so we can look at another term that we have already mentioned, which is the specific or specifically characterized and the generality. The specific belongs to the impermanent, the functioning thing. So the generality belongs to the category of permanent. So you can see here how we have gone through understanding a bit more, defining a bit more these two main categories. One is the functioning things, and the other one are the permanent things. Now, remember we said from the very beginning that the permanent things, we don't have much to talk about, but we have much more to talk about in terms of impermanent entities, impermanent things. So since we don't have much to say about the permanent, it's much better that we have a lot to talk about the functioning. Really, we have to talk about the functioning. We haven't exhausted the functioning, right? We have a lot to say about functioning. So we said from the very beginning that functioning things is a category of things that become the subject of conversation. We have a lot to say about them. And if you really think, you will see that from the morning when we wake up until the evening that we go to sleep, most objects of our conversation are about impermanent things. So how are you today? I'm well. Where are you going? I'm going to work. Do you get a good wage? Oh no, I get a wage, but this other person gets a better wage, and so on and so forth. There is almost every subject of our conversation is about functioning impermanent things. And this is why it is mentioned that, these are the objects of our conversation, or most of the objects of conversation are about impermanent things. But as we say, there is conversation about the permanent, but there are far fewer objects of conversation in terms of the permanent. Okay, so let's look at the category, one of the main categories that we have, which is functioning things. And we say there is a lot to talk about functioning things. And actually we can divide and subdivide and kind of like expound functioning things quite a lot. So because we can break it down into many branches, you can see why this gives us many topics of conversation. We can talk a lot. We have a lot to say about functioning things. Okay, so now if you have functioning things, we can break it down into 3 branches. One branch will be matter. The second branch in the middle will be awareness. The third branch on the side will be non-associated compositional factors. Okay, so you see here, we have functioning things and we have 3 branches. The first branch that we say is matter. So what is matter or material thing? It's something which is established by particles. So you take particles, you gather them together, and then you have matter. You have a material thing. All right. Then in the middle, we have awareness. So we said at the very beginning that awareness is not something that can be seen by the eyes. Awareness is not something that you can touch with your hands. However, we can talk about awareness. We can describe awareness. And actually, the majority of our conversation is about awareness. We have to say a lot about awareness. And this is why Geshe says, in this 3-fold classification, I put awareness in the center, in the middle. Okay, it's a very important category. Okay, and then at the end, we have a 3rd category because they are things which are neither matter, not awareness. So they fall in the 3rd category of non-associated compositional factors. Okay, now remember that we said, we have explained here the pervasion. So we have functioning things and we break it down into 3 branches. So anything that is below functioning things, it is pervasive, it is necessary, that is a functioning thing. In a sense, when you have something and you divide it into many things, all of those things, they go back and relate to it. It is pervasive that all these subgroups, necessary, they are what is on top of them, and on top of them is functioning thing. And later on, we are going to take each one of these groups and further subdivide it into many branches, sub-branches for matter, for awareness, for non-associated composition factors. But all of those things, you can take them back and say, all of those things, it is pervasive, it is necessary, they are functioning things because they came out of functioning things by subdividing it, isn't it? So Geshe says, I think that those who have already an understanding of it is pervasive, it is necessary, if it is this, it is pervasive, that is that, can now even see it more clearly, because we say all of these subdivisions, all of those branches, it is pervasive, that they are the thing above them, the category above them, right? So hopefully you can have more clarity. Also, the other thing that becomes apparent is that here we are subdividing and subdividing and subdividing, and that actually shows that we have many things to talk about. So this is what we said about functioning things. They are the object of our conversation. They're the basis or the subject matter of our conversations. All right, so actually you could have a page and you could draw a diagram with all of this that we were saying. I don't know if you can read it, but in any case, you should do your own, okay? So at the very center, top center of your page, what do you write? You write selfless, or if you want to write selflessness, the same in English, selfless. And that is divided into two. We have two branches. One is the existent, and the other one is the non-existent. For the non-existent, we don't have much to say. Non-existent, okay, the horns of the rabbits, and that's the end of the conversation, okay? For the existent, we have quite a lot to say. And then you see the existent is divided into functioning and permanent. So again, from these two categories, the permanent, we don't have much to say. But for the functioning, we have quite a lot to talk about. And then we take here the functioning and we divide and we split it up into three. We have matter, we have awareness, and we have non-associated compositional factors. And we want to put awareness here in the middle, in the center, because it's a very important category for us. So as you can see, we start from selfless and we go down, subdivide, 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 which means that each of those subgroups, if you consolidate it upwards and then upwards and then upwards again, everything ends up in your head category, which is selfless. Every time you go up, 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 you say it is pervasive. So if it is this, the lower category, it is pervasive, that is the category above it. And this is pervasive, that is the category above it. And this is pervasive, that is the first, your title here, your main object. And Geshe says, I think that if you look at this presentation, my idea is that it actually indicates how important selflessness is. We always talk about selflessness of the person, selflessness of phenomena, it's emptiness, and always we say selflessness is very important. Emptiness is very important. It is a crucial point because you see everything eventually is traced back. It means it belongs to selflessness. We have pervasion on every step. So pervasion, 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 everything leads you into selflessness. It indicates that it is a very important category, a very important concept. Okay, so we say that functioning things we broke down into 3 branches: matter, or you could say form. The middle one is awareness, that is the most important, and then we have non-associated compositional factors. We say that awareness is a very big subject, and Geshe says, I don't want to start talking about awareness today because it is very involved. It can end up being confusing. There are a lot of things that perhaps you don't understand if I start talking about awareness, and it's very extensive. So let's start with the other category, that was matter or form. This is subdivided into 2 branches: external form and internal form. Okay, so that's it. Everything we need to know about form is that there are 2 types, the external and the internal. Now, in terms of subtlety, in terms of quantity and so forth, there are some differences, but basically just understand these 2 categories. External form, easy for us to see, and there is also internal form. So as we say, we had this threefold classification. We say one is matter, the next is awareness, the next is non-associated composite neuron factors. And then we say with matter, it's further subdivided into external and internal. But before we go into talking about classifications, first of all, we have to understand what is matter, right? So here we're talking about form, material form. So, and we mentioned that material form is something which is established by particles. So what are those particles? So in Buddhism, we accept that we have 8 types of particles. So something that is created by combining those 8 types of particles is considered to be material substance, and therefore it is form. So those 8 types of particles are the 4 particles of the elements. So the particles of earth, the particles of water, the particles of fire, the particles of wind. And then in addition to that, we have the particles of form, of smell, of taste, and of tactility. So once you have those 8 particles combining together, they create a mass that is considered to be matter, and this is form. Okay, once you understand the nature of that, you say, then I divide it. I have 2 branches. I have external and I have internal form. So as we say, with form, we have 2 branches, the external and the internal. So the external form is form that is not included within our own continuum. So external means it's not within us, it's outside, and therefore it is external. Whilst internal form is a form that is included within our own continuum. And this includes the 5 types of sense powers. So the eye sense power, ear sense power, nose sense power, taste sense power, and physical sense power. So this is considered to be internal form, and it is actually more subtle. Okay, external form are all those things that are out there and we can see. We talked about the colors, the shapes, but everything you can see around you, like the house, all those things that you can see around you. These are external form. They're not included within the continuum of the person. So with external form, because these are things that we can see with our eyes directly, Geshe says there's not much to explain. Why we don't need a very detailed explanation. You look around you and you see all those things. You understand this. And besides, Geshe says, I think probably in terms of external form, you know much more than I do. Probably there are people here in the audience who produce material things. There are those who buy them more than me. There are those who sell them. So probably you know much more about the properties of external form. All right, so Geshe therefore says, there's not much point talking about external form, but it is much more meaningful to talk about internal form. And here, in terms of internal form, we talked about the 5 types of power. There is also mental power, but we're not discussing this here. We're talking about the 5 types of power. So the eye power, or the power of the eyes, the ears, the nose, the taste, and physical sense power. So we say that those things are taught internal because they are included within the continuum of the individual. Now, first of all, we need to understand, what does that say? What does that phrase is talking about? What's the information that we have here? It says included within the continuum. Actually, they are included within the continuum of the awareness of that individual. Okay, so they are the awareness of that individual derives some experience due, from those things. Okay, so let's explain what we mean by this. We have the ball of the eye, all right? So that fleshy ball that we call the eye. So within this, we have the eye power. And depending on the eye power, we have eye awareness. If you actually harm your visual power, the power of the eye, the awareness that relies upon it will also be harmed. And therefore, perhaps you're going to lose your eye awareness, okay? Therefore, we say that what we want to indicate here is that eye awareness is actually deriving experience, or can come to understand things from this eye power, the eye sense power, okay? So in that sense, we say that it is this eye sense power, the power is included within the continuum of experiences of eye awareness, okay? So let's see what we have here. First of all, we have the socket of the eye. So we're not talking about this. Within the socket of the eye, we have the ball of the eye. So this is not what internal form is, but within the ball of the eye, we say that we have the visual power, okay, the power of the eye. So it is as if within the ball of the eye, imagine that you have a bit of a cavity, and within that, you have something. In Tibetan, some describe it or give it the name of the uncontaminated flower. So don't expect to find a flower there, a mini flower there. But what that refers to is, when you have the flower and you have the petals of the flower, and then in the middle, you have the receptors of the pollen, okay? So each one of the pollen is almost like a little grain, okay? So imagine something the size of a pollen, of a small grain, I don't know if grain is a small particle, let's say, of pollen, which in nature is clean and clear and transparent. Okay, so this is the power, the eye power that we say we are talking about. So obviously you understand that it is something which is quite small, it is something which is quite subtle, It's not gross, right? It's not big, it's not gross, it's quite subtle, it is transparent, it is very fine. Okay, Geshe was saying, I don't know if scientists these days with the different equipment they have, whether they can perceive something like this within the eye. I don't think they do. Maybe they can, but Geshe says, I'm not sure, but I don't think they do. They do. All right. So imagine you have that very clear, transparent, almost like a grain, right? A transparent grain. Okay. Because that is there, it means awareness can actually register that thing. Awareness can have experience at that area in the eyes. So this is what it means included within awareness, or almost exciting awareness, becoming, so that you can become aware. Awareness can operate there. So included within that awareness. So we mentioned before that if the eye power is harmed, the awareness that relies upon it is also harmed. So eye or visual awareness can be harmed. It's something important to understand here, that awareness is not material, and therefore you cannot cause it, you cannot stop it, you cannot block it, you cannot deteriorate it. You cannot cause it to deteriorate, but this visual awareness relies upon the eye power. The eye power is that little grain, and that thing is physical. If the basis, which is the eye power, is harmed, then the awareness that is based upon it is harmed. It means because, you know, the basis has deteriorated, then the awareness that relies upon it is also affected, right? To give you an example, you have a wall, and the wall is the basis, and upon the wall that is the basis, you have a painting that is based upon the wall. If you destroy the wall, you destroy the painting, isn't it? So there are different explanations that try to explain how eye awareness sees form. So you know how we gave this presentation and we say that the eye power is like that tiny little grain that is clear and transparent. So some say, oh, okay, it's clear and transparent. It is like a mirror. So therefore, perhaps the sequence of events is that the form is reflected upon this mirror-like sense power, eye sense power, right? And then because it is reflected on the eye power, eye awareness can recognize it. Geshe says there are some people who say this, but I don't agree, because form actually has to be reflected, or it has to appear on the eye awareness itself. Okay, so then there is the question, then what is the reason? What's the necessity? Why do we need to have the sense power, the eye sense power? We need the eye sense power because it is the basis. It is the foundation. It is the basis upon which the eye awareness relies. Eye awareness needs that eye power to rely upon. It's not that the object, the form, is reflected on the eye power, and this is how eye awareness comes to understand it. The object must appear on awareness itself, but awareness relies upon the power. Okay, so just as we have explained what happens with the eyes, the eye sockets, the eyes, eye sense power, eye awareness, isn't it? Similarly, we will have for the ears, we will have for the nose, we will have for the tongue, and we will have for the body, the physical power, isn't it? Okay, so what happens in the nose? We have the cavity, And within the cavity of the organ of the nose, right? We have cavity here. We will have the nose sense power. The shape of the nose sense power is like two chopsticks. So it matches the shape of the cavity that we have. In the eyes, we have this round cavity, isn't it? And the eye sense power is almost like a little grain, round grain. Here for the nose, it has the shape of two chopsticks. So don't think that it is something big and gross. As we say, it is very subtle matter. It is clean, clear, transparent, very subtle, very small. Okay, and on the basis of that, we have nose awareness, and this is how we can perceive the various smells. Okay, let's come to the ears. So obviously here we have the organ, the fleshy organ, and inside you can see there's a cavity inside the ear. So obviously this will become the cavity that houses the ear sense power. We want to see the shape of the ear sense power. In Tibetan, it is described as roll it and cut it. Okay, so what are we talking about? If you have a piece of paper and you roll it, right, almost like a cigar, okay, and then you cut it, and then if you see at the profile of what you have created, it's actually a cochlea, okay? So I think it matches very well the description that we have of the inner ear. It's a cochlea. Okay, it's almost like a spiral. Yes, so this will be very subtle, clear, transparent form that is the ear sense power. Geshe was saying some people describe it as a drum, but Geshe says, I don't think that they mean that it is like a skin that is stretched out, but rather again, it will be almost like a membrane that has this cochlea, this spiral shape, okay? So we have that subtle form within the cavity of the ear, and because this is there, then ear awareness can perceive the sound. Okay, let's come to the taste sense power. All right, so, or the tongue sense power. Okay, so obviously we have the organ of the tongue, and you can almost guess that that is going to be the house, or what is housing the power, the sense power that we have in the tongue. You can almost guess what the shape is. Okay, so the shape is the shape of crescent moon. So almost like a petal, like a horse petal, yeah, not a flower petal. So like crescent moon, okay, like this. So this very subtle, clear, transparent type of form will be the tongue sense power. So when we consume different foods, the taste or the food comes in contact with the taste sense power. And who is aware of the taste is not the taste sense power, it's the tongue awareness that becomes aware of the taste, isn't it? The same thing with the eyes. Who becomes aware of the visual forms is eye awareness. Who becomes aware of the sounds is ear awareness. Who becomes aware of the smells is nose awareness. Who becomes aware of the tastes? It is the tongue awareness. Okay, so because that sense power has that particular shape, so when the food or when the different tastes, they come in contact, we have more first we experience the taste on the edge of the tongue. Of course, we experience at the center of the tongue as well, but this actually is coming from the edges of the tongue because of the shape of the tongue sense power. Okay. Okay, so we come to the last one, the physical power or the body power. So what is the shape of that? Okay, so imagine that you have the outline of the physical body, and so that will be the house or the cavity that will, within which we will have the physical or the body sense power. And what is it like? They say that it is like a layer that covers the entire cavity, the entire shape of the body, made of extremely fine skin. Okay, so imagine whatever living being you know that has the most subtle, the most refined, the most thin layer of skin. Imagine such a layer of skin, like a very thin membrane covering the entire body. So we're not talking about the skin, our skin, this is gross, right? We're not talking about this. We're talking about a very fine membrane inside, covering the entire body. And when that comes in contact with different objects, we can say, we generate the sensation and we say, oh, this is soft, this is harsh, and so on and so forth. So you see, with all the sense powers here, we describe them and we talk about their shape, isn't it? So if you're talking about the shape of something, this indicates that this is a material object, something that is made of matter, something which is physical. So in this way, we have described the five powers, five sense powers. So all of them, they are inner, the five inner sense powers. And from the beginning, we said they are inner because they are included within the continuum, within our own continuum. Actually, they are included within the continuum of awareness, right? So the continuum of awareness has those. Okay, possesses those, influences those. Okay, so, or they holds those. So in this sense, they are inner. So having understood the inner, Geshe says a thing almost automatically, you can understand what are the outer. So that is inner form. So you can now understand, as opposed to that, what would be the outer, the external. Okay, so now let's look at our bodies. Within our bodies, we have many organs, isn't it? We have heart, we have liver, we have kidneys, we have appendix, we have all sorts of things, isn't it? Okay, so let's look at the heart, for example. So what do you think the heart is? Is it external form or is it internal form? Is it something that is contained within our awareness or not contained within our awareness? What is it? Okay, so Geshe here, really the discussion is about all these parts, internal parts of the body, all right? We have all these organs. We have the lungs, we have the heart, we have the stomach, we have the intestines. We have, as we said, kidneys, we have the eyes, like the ball of the eyes, we have the nose, we have the ears, we have the tongue. What are all those things? Are they external form or are they internal form? Are they included within the continuum of awareness or not? What are they? Could you find what they are? Can you say what they are?
Yeah, they are they belong to the external form, and they do not reside within the mental continuum.
Geshe says, all right, when we were talking about the sense powers, we said that once you affect the sense power, in some way, positive or negative way, that actually creates the experience of awareness, isn't it? And in that sense, we say it is internal because it is included within the continuum of awareness, isn't it? So Geshe was saying, take the heart, for example. If your heart is suffering, or if your heart is doing well, or if your heart is beating, isn't it? Doesn't that create awareness, or doesn't awareness register that? So if we apply the same reasoning, Geshe was saying, I would classify all of this as internal form. So Geshe was saying, there is also this presentation of some who say that when we talk about the cavities and the organs and so forth, you could almost say that they are the meeting place of external and internal form. And they are described as having parts of them that are considered to be external form and parts of them that are considered to be internal form. For example, hair, right? Okay, you cannot see hair. Okay, if I'm talking about the tips of my hair, it doesn't matter. I can cut it, I can move it, I can do whatever to it. It will not induce any feeling. But if I do something to the roots of my hair, then that gives some feeling there, isn't it? And therefore, for the hair, they say the tips are not included within consciousness. However, the roots are. And similarly, with the different parts of the body, the organs of the body, the cavities of the body, and so forth, you could make the case that there are parts of them that generate a feeling, and therefore they are included within awareness, and there are parts of them who don't. And another example is the nails, especially if you have long nails, all right? So the tip of the nail is not, you can affect it, you can cut it, you can touch it, it's not generating awareness, but the root of the nail is conjoined with awareness, or it creates a feeling, and if it creates a feeling, it means it is included within awareness. So Geshe says, I think they fall in this category of both external and internal, having parts that are both external and internal form. So in this way, form actually perhaps should not be classified as two, should be classified as three: the internal, the external, and that which is common of internal and external. So Geshe says, you can see, right? Initially with form, when I introduced, I say there are two branches. You have external form and you have internal form. And when I really explained these two, then it became obvious that there is a third branch. So this is how the third branch was presented to you. Okay, so really, Geshe says, I think now it will be very clear and stable in your mind that actually for form, there are three. Why? Because we gave only two, and then we started thinking, this and this, but it almost, became so apparent that there is a third category as well, okay? So Geshe says, this is how I introduced the third type of form. Okay, so Geshe was saying, we said that that which is included within our continuum is that which stirs some feeling, and that feeling is registered in our awareness, isn't it? This is the definition of that which is internal. It is included within our awareness. Okay, so we observe a situation. We are witnesses. Someone is beating an old lady with a stick. And when we see that, we have a feeling, isn't it? We register that and we have a feeling for this old lady. So is this old lady part of our, included within our continuum or not? Now, in the debate grounds, there are those who debate that she is and those who say that she is not. Let's say it's your own mother, someone's beating your own mother, there will be a feeling, isn't it? But you cannot say that your mother is included within your continuum. I mean, actually, she's over there. It's been physically, she's another location. Okay, so in this example, with someone beating up your mother, we see that we need to be more specific when we define what is included within our continuum. That which is included within our continuum is that which is included within the continuum of our awareness in the sense of inducing some feeling. But that is not specific enough. We have to say that which directly induces a feeling is included within our awareness. For example, when a stick hits your own hand, it directly induces the feeling of pain. But when the stick hits your mother over there, of course, it makes you feel uncomfortable. Of course, it induces certain feelings. These feelings are not direct. These feelings are indirect feelings that come due to the affection that you have for your mother. So this is how we have to make the distinction. So you see, when we think about it, sometimes we find that we have to add additional words because the additional words really clarify, really define it very well. So if you say, if something directly induces feeling registered by your own awareness, then this is classified as inner form. So the word directly induce feeling, directly, makes a difference. Okay, so with this example, we said that we have the direct experience of pain. That was the direct feeling of pain that came because the stick hit our hand, okay? So who produced that direct experience of feeling? It's a stick, isn't it? Okay, so now the question is the stick part of our, included within our continuum or not? Because it produces the direct experience of feeling. Okay, so the important thing here is to listen carefully to the words, because we're talking about, okay, so you have the stick that hits you and you feel the pain, all right? So pain is a feeling, all right? So you register a feeling. Okay, the stick does not register the feeling. The stick is the one that induces the experience, in this case, experience of pain, experience of a bad feeling, painful feeling. So the one who induces is not the one who experiences. The one who induces is the one who introduces the feeling. Where is this feeling going to be experienced? On the point where the stick touches your skin, isn't it? And this is where the pain will be experienced. So the stick induces the pain, does not experience the pain. All right, so Geshe was saying we had a few classes on Dura, on collected topics, and I hope that that was a bit of a benefit, but I, in discussion with the administration of the center, I was informed that, again, I was reminded that Dzong Rinpoche has strongly recommended that we also study Lorig, mind in awareness. And it would be good to start the classes of Lorig as soon as possible before Dzong Rinpoche's teaching and so forth. So actually, this is our last class on Dura, on collected topics. And from next week, we will be starting the classes on Lorig. Okay, so Geshe was saying, I hope that whatever classes we had here, although we are, we have to stop with Dura, with collected topics, I hope and I think it has been of some benefit to you. And in the future, if we have leisure of time, again, we can come back and continue our teachings of Dura. Please understand that I am not the one who is deciding on the subjects. There is administration in the center, and the administration of the center basically decides and tells me what is the next subject. So if you have any requests or any preferences and so forth, don't talk to me directly about it. You have to talk to the center. Okay, so it's the people of the center to decide, to be informed. So for the next subject, which is Lorig, it's all about mind and awareness. Again, it's a very extensive subject. There is there is no end when you want to present the different types of awareness and the different types of mind. But Geshe says I will do my best to present to you a presentation that is concise, short, not too long, and also easy to digest. Geshe says I will do my best according to my understanding. But again, keep in mind, as it was in Dura, don't expect that you will know or that you will understand everything of Lorig. Okay, so just as we did with Dura we got a taste of Dura. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it, some people thought it was easy, some people thought it was difficult to digest. So with Lorig, exactly, it will be the same. Some people will like it, some people will not like it. It will be more easy than others, and others will find it difficult again, all right? So Geshe says, I can only do my best and with a very pure intention present this subject. I am not omniscient. I know one way of presenting it, or maybe a couple ways of presenting it, but I don't know every possible way of presenting it, and I don't know the exact way of presenting it that perhaps you're expecting or will benefit you most. But I will try my best. So yeah, just keep in mind that these decisions, Geshe says, these are not my personal decisions. All right, so from next week, it will be Lorig.